Humanity always has a curiosity of exploring throughout its history. Some are dangerously challenging. Some have the guts of steel to engage in things of the unknown. Back in the 1950s, United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War ought to challenge themselves at their peak of technology by who is the first nation to reach space. The sheer ingenious of technology at the time was at its greatest between superpowers. That humanity was at its optimistic view of becoming a space-faring civilization. So far, rocket propulsion is the only viable solution to achieve spaceflight by fighting against the forces of gravity on our planet. The principle of rocket is to spew hot gases at its nozzle, creating a force which the rocket can move upwards. Let me put that into simple terms. Imagine a person standing in a skateboard while holding a fire extinguisher.
2, 1.
This is how the rocket works that takes advantage of third laws of motion as courtesy by Isaac Newton. Every force or action has equal to opposite reaction. A rocket has two challenges to face. How would a rocket be able to reach space? Does it need to constantly go upward? What goes up goes down. In order for a rocket to go to space, it needs to go fast, really fast. Which if the rocket goes high enough into the atmosphere, called the Kármán line, an area between our atmosphere and space, the rocket needs to accelerate sideways in order to beat Earth's gravity. Once the rocket attains enough speed, it will achieve a phenomenon called an orbit, which the rocket will constantly rotate around the Earth's influence that this rocket would be able to sightsee the magnificence of our planet. Rockets will need a process called multi-stage separation in order to fight its own weight, generating more thrust and acceleration towards space. The now old depleted stage will be separated from the upper stage, hurtling the early stage back to the atmosphere. Space entities today exploit this process over countless decades. However, there is a huge problem with this type of function. Building a vehicle like this is tremendously expensive. Even the greatest legendary Saturn V rocket of the Apollo era cost nearly $1.45 billion in adjusted to 2022 inflation. These costs alone are inefficient to sustain an effective economy in space. A great piece of technology that is merely disposable in existence, that the sole mission of the rocket is to carry out tasks that is needed to send cargo to space, such as satellites, probes, and space stations, while the rocket will be hurtling back towards Earth and gets destroyed. A simple explanation can be defined by saying, I will buy a car just to get destroyed after reaching its destination. That seems really inefficient, do you agree? This is where we define the term reusability. The criteria of reusability is that it's your similar type of traditional rockets, except that it can be used multiple times, fulfilling its demands on the mission, and then the rocket returned to the location where it was launched. It will redo another mission by 100 or perhaps 1,000 times similar to our automobiles and commercial flights that every day people use to take that advantage in the modern age. Government entities such as NASA tried to use the advent of reusable technology. Thus, the Space Shuttle was created by NASA in 1976 in order to fulfill the goals of reusability. The mechanics of this program is to use an aircraft laid with a rocket propulsion technology by strapping it with solid rocket boosters that acts as a cheaper alternative to a more heavier chemical propulsion rocket. The Space Shuttle launches the same as a rocket does, penetrating out the Earth's atmosphere. However, the difference is the solid rocket boosters will come back to Earth to be reused for the next mission, beginning its mission to space operations. Once the Space Shuttle fulfilled its mission, where it will slowly descend back to the landing zone. This hallmark of achievement reduced the cost of launching rockets tenfold from what used to be $1.45 billion per launch from the Saturn V rocket to just $450 million per launch, leaving the visionary mark of the cheaper launch vehicle, creating a space habitat called the International Space Station that is still orbiting to this day. The Shuttle program, acting as a foundation to establish a presence on the moon, seemed inevitable. However, there are many difficult setbacks that hallmark the downfall of the launch vehicle. 7 astronauts were killed in the Challenger mission in 1986, halting the Shuttle program for 2 years that caused massive refurbishments on the project. And in 2003, during the Columbia mission that obliterated the vehicle during the atmosphere re-entry, killing all the astronauts on board, creating a massive backlash on the program that led to its downfall in 2011. Due to the massive reconstructions and refurbishments of the Space Shuttle, the shuttle's cost jump-started to $1.2 billion by safety standards of the astronauts, which led to the vehicle economically ineffective, leading NASA to spend a total of $209 billion in its lifetime. The true meaning of space reusability came to the rise of private companies, which will jumpstart the new space race, leading the rise of pioneers and entrepreneurs open to the realm of the space industry. One notable company that exploits the advantage of reusable technology is SpaceX, founded by billionaire tech magnate Elon Musk. SpaceX's paramount in technology was the use of the Falcon 9 and the Falcon Heavy rocket, which pushed the boundaries of the rocket industry, driving more affordable, reliable, and reusable rocket tech that finally broke the boundaries of expendable rocket industry. The most profound achievement of SpaceX was its upcoming creation of a fully reusable Starship Super Heavy. It is the program that aims the key of making humanity a multi-planetary species, initiating a new space renaissance never witnessed by humanity's extent that will change everyday lives forever. The first stage of the rocket, called the Super Heavy, which boosts the second stage of the rocket Starship high up to the stratosphere. Once the Super Heavy reaches a decent altitude, it will separate and retrograde itself, then proposedly glide back to the launch site, where the launch tower will attempt to grab and catch the falling Super Heavy as it proposedly lands in decoherence with the tower. While Starship will begin its operations on space to do whatever is necessary for its objective, either by sending materials to space, establishing a space habitat around the planet, and most importantly, to establish outposts on the Moon and Mars. Once Starship fulfills its objective, it will return to Earth, initiating its re-entry to the launch pad, being grabbed by the launch tower where it can be refueled, do some little refurbishments, and then launch a few days later to do another operations in space. What makes Starship Super Heavy the grand foundation of creating a space economy is it's very reliable, very cheap, and can easily be mass-produced to 1,000. According to Musk, the Starship will only have a concern on fuel, with little to no refurbishments, which the cost per launch will estimate at around $2 to $10 million per launch. Space Shuttle cost of sending materials in space exceeded $60,000 per kilogram. If you talk about the price of Starship, it tells a different story. The cost of Starship would only be estimated to be around $7 to $20 per kilogram, breaking the entire market of the rocket industry. Starship Super Heavy will be available to the market by 2023 if things go smoothly with the FAA regulatory approval, launching their own global internet satellite called Starlink. Although SpaceX isn't the only company that attempted to use reusability as the aspect of changing the course of the rocket industry, there are other companies such as Blue Origin by Jeff Bezos, the Rocket Lab by Peter Beck, Virgin Galactic by Richard Branson, and Relativity Space by Tim Ellis began to build their own iterations of reusable rocket technology. With the exciting news of space competition to the new era of space exploration, new inspiration of space-related companies would start to erupt in a few decades. With the access of cheaper transportation to space, a new type of industry will emerge in the global market that will shift humanity in a new direction of life. Space reusability will revolutionize the lives of many people to discover new technologies that's never invented before, creating ultimate possibilities to not just create a new generation of brilliant minds to its ultimate dreams.